Добрый вечер, дорогие мои друзья, зрители, коллеги. Добро пожаловать в очередной эфир по SwiftUI. Я продолжаю в этом сезоне, сезон первый, как я его назвал, продолжаю, значит, повтор обновленного курса по SwiftUI. Называется 100 Days SwiftUI от Пола Хадсона. И на данный момент я нахожусь на дне 83. В прошлый раз я закончил день номер 82, и теперь буду переходить к дню 83. Без долгих раздумий перейду к нему, и мы будем приступать. Поехали. День 83. Это проект 16, часть 5. Hot Prospects называется этот проект. Смотрим, что он здесь нам расскажет в введении. Есть классическая книга по информатике под названием «Структура и интерпретация компьютерных программ». И в предисловии к ней авторы пишут несколько важных слов. Программы должны быть написаны для того, чтобы их читали люди, и только потом для того, чтобы их выполняли машины. Стоит прочитать это несколько раз, потому что это оказывает огромное влияние на то, как мы пишем программное обеспечение. Почему мы заставляем себя использовать типы данных, когда такие языки, как JavaScript, кстати говоря, позволяют нам свободно спешивать и сопоставлять строки, целые числа и даже массивы. Почему мы добавляем комментарии в наш код? Почему мы пытаемся разбить все на функции? Почему у нас есть контроль доступа? Все это и многое другое можно ответить одной цитатой, потому что наша цель всегда должна заключаться в том, чтобы сделать наши намерения понятными для себя и других разработчиков. Процессор, на котором выполняется наш код, не заботится о типах данных, комментариях, контроле доступа и многом другом. Но если вы хотите написать отличное программное обеспечение, которое масштабируется, тестируется и обслуживается, вам нужно добавить несколько правил. Так что, возможно, сегодня попытайтесь и подумайте немного больше о том, как вы пишете свой код. Поможет ли добавление дополнительных комментариев вспомнить тему через несколько месяцев. Написание хороших комментариев – это такой же навык, как написание хорошего кода. Сегодня предстоит проработать 3 темы, в рамках которых вы напишите вкладку «Я» или «Me-View», отсканируйте QR-коды, добавите действие смахивания, swipe в наше приложение и многое другое. Переключаемся обратно на язык оригинала. You'll write me tab, scan a QR code and swipe actions to our app and more. Отлично, всего лишь 3 раздела в сегодняшнем дне. У меня опять будет возникать проблема с тем, что я не помню, на какой клавиатуре я печатаю. Итак, первый раздел — генерирование и масштабирование QR-кода.
Core image lets us generate a QR code from any input string and do so extremely quickly. However, there's a small problem. The image it generates is very small. It's only as big as the pixels required to show its data. Now, it's trivial to make the QR code larger, but to make it look good, we also have to adjust SwiftUI's image interpolation. So in this step, we're going to ask users to enter their name and email address into a form, use those 2 pieces of information to make a QR code identifying them, and then scale up the code without making it fuzzy. Now, I already have a simple MeView struct we made as a placeholder earlier on. So our first job will be to add a couple of text fields and their string bindings here. First, let's add some new pieces of state that hold a name and email address. We can say @AppStorage, name, private var name is anonymous. And then @AppStorage, email address, private var email address, we'll do you@yoursite.com. Now, when it comes to the body of this view, we're going to use 2 text fields with large fonts, but this time we're going to attach a small but useful modifier to these text fields called text content type. And it tells iOS what kind of information we're asking the user for. And this should allow iOS to provide autocomplete data on behalf of the user, which makes the app nicer to use. So you want to replace your current body code with this. There's a navigation stack. Inside there's a form with a text field prompting for a name. And a text for that bound to our name storage. Again, we'll do a text content type of name. So on a real device, it'll prompt them with their own contact name automatically. And I use a font of title that's bigger on the screen. Then we'll say there's another one called email address, or text field, email address, like that, with text bound to $email address. Again, a text content type. Type, please. There we go. Of email address. Again, autocompletes nicely with a font of title. And then, just on our form here, we'll attach a navigation title of your code. This is their personal QR code. Now, we're going to use the name and email address fields to generate a QR code, which is a square collection of black and white pixels that can be scanned by phones and other devices. Now, Core Image has a filter in place just for this built in. As you learned how to use Core Image filters previously, you'll find this very, very similar. First, we've got to bring in all the Core Image filters using a new import. We'll say here, import core image.ci filter built-ins. Second, we're going to add two properties to store an active core image context and an instance of core image's QR code generator filter. So we're going to add two new properties here in our me view. We'll say let context be a new CI context. And our filter is CI filter.QR code generator. And now for the interesting part, making the QR code itself. Now, if you remember, working with core image filters requires to provide some kind of input data, then convert the output CI image into a CG image, then that CG image to a UI image. And we'll be following exactly the same steps here, except this time our input for the filter will be a string, but the input for the filter is data. So we'll convert that by hand first. If our conversion fails for any reason, we're going to send back a default symbol, xmark.circle, an SF symbol sort of like no kind of image. And if that can't be read, which of course is theoretically possible, because SF symbols is stringly typed, we'll send back an empty UI image. And so add a new method to our meView struct down here. We'll call this thing generate QR code from string, a string, and return a UI image, the thing that's actually made from core image. So first things first, we'll set our message on the filter, the thing we'll store inside our QR code, to be the data form of our string.utf8. Whatever will be passed in right now, make it a data and send it on in. And then we'll try and read our data. We'll say if let output image is our filter's output image, then if let CG image is our context create CG image. Now remember we want to have here the extra from value. So we'll say convert that from our output image with output image.extent. So convert the whole image to our CG image here. If we can read that, then we'll send back a UI image with CG image, our CG image, like so. So if we can read the output and load it correctly, send it back. If we're still here after the two if let, it means it's failed for some one of those reasons, we'll simply do return UI image with system name of xmark.circle. But if that fails, which it might do, we'll send back an empty UI image. Now, of course, in practice, that won't fail. We've hand typed it. I think it's fine, but you've got to make the Swift compiler happy. Now, isolating all this functionality in a method works really well in SwiftUI because it means the code we put in our body property stays as simple as possible. In fact, we can just use image, UI image as an initializer directly with a call to generate QR code and then scale up to a sensible size on screen. SwiftUI will make sure the method's called whenever name or email address changes. Now, in terms of string to pass into generate QR code, we're going to be using the name and email address entered by the user, separated by a line break. This is a nice and simple format, It's easy to reverse when it comes to scanning these codes later on. And so we'll add a new image to our form directly below the second image text field here. What I'm going to say is an image with a UI image inside, and that will be our generate QR code from. Again, we're going to pass in our name, then a line break, then the email address, like so. We'll make it resizable, so it's nice and big. We'll make it scale to fit, so it stays square, and then give a frame of width 200 and height 200, like that. Run the code now. Just quickly, run the code now. You'll see it works, at least fairly well. There's our QR code. I change it here. My name is Paul Hudson, for example, or Paul at hackingwithswift, whatever.com. It all works nicely. The QR code is changing dynamically. However, look closely at the QR code. You can see it's fuzzy. This is because Core Image is making a tiny, tiny image for us, and SwiftUI is scaling up and trying to smooth out the pixels as it's being scaled. Now, line art like QR codes and barcodes is a great candidate for disabling image interpolation. In this case, we can simply say this image here has interpolation none. Do not blend out the pixels. And now the QR code is going to be lovely and sharp like you'd expect, because SwiftUI simply repeats pixels rather than trying to blend them together neatly. Honestly, I don't think cameras most of the time imagine they care which one gets used, but it looks better to users.
Что из этого видео интересное было, это я не помнил про text content type модификатора для text field. Следующее видео — это сканирование QR-кода через SwiftUI.
Scanning a QR code, or indeed any kind of visible code like a barcode, can be done by Apple's AV Foundation library. Now, this does not integrate into SwiftUI terribly smoothly, so to skip over a whole lot of pain, I've packaged up a QR code reader into a Swift package we can add and use directly inside Xcode. My package is called Code Scanner, and it's available on GitHub under the MIT license at github.com/2straws/codescanner. And it means you can look at its code, inspect it, edit it if you want to. It's all open for you to use. Here, though, we're going to add it to Xcode by following these simple steps. First, go to the File menu and choose Add Package Dependencies. Then, up here in the URL area, that's where we enter the URL to Code Scanner. Again, that is https://github.com/2straws/codescanner, like that. Then press Enter. There it is. And finally, for this up to next major version option, that's fine. That's a good default dependency rule. That means you get any bug fixes and any additional features in the future, but not any breaking changes. Once you have that done, just press Add Package, then again, Add Package. It'll be downloaded and installed into your project. Now, this Code Scanner package gives us a Code Scanner view, which is a SwiftUI view we can use. And this will be shown inside a sheet, and it'll handle code in a clean, isolated way. Now, I know I keep repeating myself, but I hope you can see the continuing theme here. The best way to write SwiftUI code is to isolate functionality in discrete methods and wrappers. So all you expose to your SwiftUI layouts is clean, clear, and unambiguous. Now, we already have a scan button inside our prospects view, somewhere down here. This thing. This thing inserts sample data right now so we can test our list work correctly, which is good at the time. But we're going to use this to trigger actual QR code scanning. So our first step is going to be add a new state property to this view to track whether we're currently showing our scanning view or not. So I'll say here, at state private var is showing scanner is false. So again, earlier we had this test functionality down here in the scan button. This thing here. This thing is not needed anymore, okay? Just delete that all and instead replace it with simply saying, yes, go ahead and show our scanning. So we'll do is showing scanner is true, like that. Now when it comes to handling the result of our scan, I've made the code scanner package do literally all the work of figuring out what the code is, how to send it back, yada, yada, yada. So all we gotta do is catch the result and process it somehow. Now, when the code scanner view finds a code, it'll call a completion closure with a result instance containing details about the code that was found, or an error saying what the problem was. Maybe the camera wasn't available, maybe it couldn't scan codes, or who knows what. Regardless of what code or error comes back, we're just going to dismiss the view. We're going to add more code shortly to do more work. So first we're going to say up at the top here, add an import for that new code scanner package we imported. And then add a new method to prospects view that will handle a scan result. So we'll say down here, there's a method called funcHandleScan accepts a result. Now this result, again, is going to be a result type containing either the scan result, the information we asked for, or a scan error if things went wrong somehow. Again, inside here, we're going to add more code later on. But one thing we can say for sure right now is once we have a scan result, good or bad, we are no longer showing the scanning view. Hide that. Now, an important part. Before we show the scanner and try to handle its result, we've got to ask the user for permission to use the camera. Is it okay? To do that, you want to choose Hot Prospects at the top here, the top one with the app icon. Then choose Targets, Hot Prospects. Then go to this Info tab. In here are our existing settings. We want to right click somewhere inside here and choose Add Row. And it'll ask you what you want to add. There's a whole bunch of options here. You want to scroll way, way down to the privacy section. All the way down here. Boom. Hello dog. You want privacy camera usage description. This one right here. What to tell the user we ask for permission to use the camera. Again, I'll show a message on the screen. It's message over here. We can say what it wants it should be. What do you want to tell them? And for us, we'll say simply, we need to scan QR codes, which is sort of self-evident for users, you know, in a QR code scanning app. But we've got to put something in there so iOS can show something on the screen. There you go, dogs. Right, so with that in place, we are now ready to try and scan some actual QR codes. We already have that is showing scanner state that determines whether they're showing a code scanner or not. So we now can attach a sheet modifier to present our scanner UI in SwiftUI territory. So in our prospects view here, we're going to look for our current SwiftUI view hierarchy, this toolbar right here, and then add to that this new modifier to do a sheet. So we'll say here, there's a new sheet. Is presented is $ is showing scanner. And what should go inside there? Because creating a scanner view takes at least 3 parameters. We're going to tell this thing an array of the types of codes we want to scan. Now, we're only scanning QR code in this app, so just saying, oh, just give me QR codes is fine. But iOS supports a whole bunch of other types of codes too. Second, we're going to give this thing a string to use as simulated data. We're in Xcode Simulator here, testing things out. It does not support using the camera to scan codes, even though our Mac has a camera built in, it doesn't sort of sync across somehow. And so what will happen is we provide some simulated data saying, oh yeah, here's my test string, and Code Scanner View will automatically present a replacement UI in this debug mode, so we can still test that things work correctly. This replacement UI will automatically send back whatever we pass in as simulated data. And third, we've got to give this thing a completion function to use. This could be an inline closure, but we just wrote the handle scan method, so we'll tell it to use that. So inside here, we'll make our code scanner view. As you can see, this thing takes a lot of options to exactly customize how it should work. In our case, we want the code types, and we want simulated data, and we want that completion. So I'll say here simply just simulated data like that, just starting sim, and enter will fill it in for me correctly. Code types, an array of types to scan for. There's a whole bunch of these supported by iOS. Lots. Dog body, I mean, that one even is. But anyway, there's a lot. We care about QR, so let's do QR now. For simulated data, this is example data that should be passed back. Now remember, our data is name, line break, email address. So for our simulated data, I'm going to say simply, let's pass back Paul Hudson, line break, \n, and email address, paul@hackingwithswift.com. And now for completion, the function to call when it's found a result or an error, we'll just say call handle scan like that. And that's enough to get most of the screen working. Isn't that right, dog? But there is one last step here. We've got to replace all that more code to come comment in our handle scan method with some actual functionality to handle the data we found. Now, again, the data we're passing back here is a name, then a line break, then an email address. So if our scanning result comes back successfully, hooray, we can pull apart that code into those two components and use them to make a new prospect object. And if code scanning fails somehow, we'll just print an error out. You can show some more interesting UI there if you want to. So down in our handle scan method here, replace this more code to come method. We'll say switch on result. If it was successful, then give me the result inside that so we can work with it, the resulting data. So we'll say our details is that result, that's our scan result here, and you'll see it has the positions of the corners, the image it was scanned, what kind of thing it was, in our case QR code, the strings that we care about, what's inside the code. Grab that, and then say components separated by \n. So pull that thing into two parts on a line break. Now remember, they could have scanned anything. They could have scanned a QR code from a box of cereal for all we know. So we've got to be careful here. Did we get two pieces of information from that QR code? We'll say guard details.count is 2, else return. Don't proceed if you haven't got exactly 2 pieces of information here. If we do have that, we're good to go. We can make a new person object using our prospect class. The name will be details0, email address details1, and is connected will be contacted will be false because obviously a new prospect here. And once we have that, we can say model context dot insert that new person. So that's how we handle a success case. When things go wrong, we're going to have a failure case with some kind of error inside here. Again, I'll simply say print scanning failed with that error dot localized description. With that, go ahead and run the code now. So again, I'm using the simulator here. You probably are there as well. If you've got a real device, please do that. Try it too. In the sim, you'll see a scan button. And this is the simulated UI you'll only see inside Xcode and simulated debugging stuff. So it's saying here, you're in the sim, there's no camera available, but we have simulated data. So just tap on this thing, and boom, there's your actual data coming back nicely. If you're on a real device, please do try it out. You'll see a permission message asking the user, do you want to allow camera use? If you grant that, you'll get a scanner view. So you can then go ahead and try it out. And if you want to try it out, you want to launch the app in a sim like we have here, go to the me view, add some text here, and basically scan that with the app here. So you can scan the me tab with your live phone, and that way see data on your phone with real information behind it.
Окей, это, в принципе, тоже без изменений. Следующее. Следующее видео — это добавление возможных swipe actions.
We need a way to move people between our contacted and uncontacted tabs. And the easiest thing to do is to add a swipe action to the VStack in our prospects view. This will allow users to swipe on any person in our list, then tap a single option to move them between the tabs. Now, remember, this view is shared in 3 places. We have everyone, contacted and uncontacted. So make sure this swipe actions look correct no matter where they're used. Now, we could try and use a bunch of ternary conditional operators here, but later on we'll add a separate button here, so ternary operator approach won't really help very much. Instead, we're going to wrap our buttons on a simple condition. So, first things first, in Prospects View, find your current VStack with one list row here. And now add this modifier, swipe actions. So here, if our prospect is currently contacted, this button will say mark uncontacted. For the system image, a bit of a long one this one, we're going to use person.crop.circle, so a person in a circle area, with a badge over them that's an X mark. So a little X over the person saying, uncontact this person, whatever. And for the action, we'll say prospect is contacted, toggle. This button is not terrible. It's not deleting anything here, but it's not great. So I'm going to say this has a tint of blue. Then in the else area for our condition, we'll say the button is mark contacted with a system image being very similar, person crop circle again. This time I'm going to fill it in with a badge and a check mark. So it's more positive, yes, this is good. Like that. And then the code for that will be prospect again is contacted, toggle. Like that. This is a good button, so I'll say the tint is green. Now, thanks to SwiftUI and SwiftData's tight integration, just calling toggle on this Boolean will flip the Boolean between true and false, and then update SwiftUI view, and also save the change to permanent storage, all in just one line of code. If you run the app now, you should see it all works correctly. Let's find out. I have my user here in the Everyone tab. I can swipe on them and say not contacted or contacted correctly, and I'll move between tabs. This person here has been contacted right now. If I swipe on them, it says not. Tap on that. Boom, away they go into uncontacted, and then now they appear here correctly. So you can move between tabs smoothly, like that. Now, swipe actions are a great feature for adding extra functionality to your SwiftUI app, but they don't play nicely with the onDelete modifier we used previously. So we've got to make delete work by hand. And we're going to do this in 2 ways here at the same time. We'll add an individual swipe to delete like we have it on delete. We'll also add a multiple selection option that lets users remove multiple entries at the same time. Now, getting a swipe to delete equivalent is straightforward because we just add another button to our existing swipe actions. But please do add this first in the list of actions up here for the 2 existing buttons. That way it becomes the automatically full swipe to activate functionality, which is the default for this kind of functionality. So we'll say here, there's a button which is titled delete. The system image will be trash, like that. But the role will be .destructive. Mark this in red, this is a bad button. And the action will be model context, delete that prospect. Now, when used by itself, a simple swipe to delete, the regular swipe to delete does not use a trash icon. It shows the word delete. But when used alongside other swipe actions like we have here, Apple prefers to have an icon to avoid having some icons and some words side by side. That'd be weird. Now, the second approach we're going to add here is let users select multiple rows at the same time and delete them all in one go. This means adding some new local state to store their active selection. So we'll start by saying we have some state at the top here. At state private var, selected prospects is a set of prospect. Obviously empty by default, no selections. We can then bind that to our list. So we're going to say for our list down here, yes, go over all our prospects, but then track selection bound to $selected prospects. Now this next bit's important to help SwiftUI understand that this whole VStack and its swipe actions, this thing represents one prospect being selected. It's important to add a tag to this. Below the swipe action is fine just here. To say you have a tag of prospect, meaning when I am selected, that is what you should add to the set or remove from the set, that prospect object. And now we're just going to decide what kind of UI to build to make selection and deletion possible. There are a few different options here, and of course you're welcome to experiment, but I think the easiest is to show an edit button in the top leading part of our navigation bar, which is where it normally lives in Apple's own apps. We can then activate a mass deletion, like trigger the deletion with a second button. And Apple usually has that in a special toolbar at the bottom of the screen, very far from the edit done button to avoid mistakes. First, we're going to add a method that will trigger a mass deletion. So down here somewhere, we're going to say there's a new method called delete. And what this is going to do is loop over all the objects in that selected prospect set and delete them one by one. So we'll say for prospect in selected prospects, enter, model context, dot delete that prospect. And now we can add two new toolbar items to create to alongside our current toolbar item here. So we have this current one for doing scanning, this thing here. The first one will be an edit done button. So I'll say we've got a toolbar item with a placement of top bar leading, and that will show an edit button. Then another one that will create the delete button, but only when there are actually selections available to delete. So we'll say if our selected prospects is empty is false. We have something you actually want to delete here. Make a toolbar item with a placement being dot bottom bar, like that. That's a separate toolbar at the bottom. In there will be our button, which is text only this time, delete selected. No icon here. Make it really clear what this thing does. The action for this will be to call delete. Now with this option in place, we're giving users two ways to get to the same thing. The regular swipe delete functionality they expect to see, but also a clear edit done button to aid discoverability. Now, your code won't run right now, almost certainly, because we're now using toolbar item here and here, but a regular button here, and Swift's not sure what we mean anymore. You want to wrap this button here in a toolbar item that knows where to place this thing. We'll say you have a toolbar item with a placement of top bar trailing, match what we had before, then put a button inside there like so. Now, Command R, go ahead and run the app. So we should see a swipe to delete. Because this delete button is the very first thing in that swipe actions area, you can swipe further to trigger a delete like that. I'm going to add sample person, add another one so we can do multi-delete. There's our edit done button. Boom, I can now select stuff. I'll select you, and then as you can see, this delete selected buttons appeared. I press that, they both go away. It's working really nicely.
Но working действительно really nicely. Но что бы я изменил, это я бы для вот этой кнопки Delete Selected, я бы еще сделал Role Destructive. Так, чтобы она все-таки окрасилась в красный цвет. Это я сейчас у себя и сделаю. Угу. Готово. На этом я должен написать отчет в Twitter и в Threads. Это день 83. Here we go. 83, да? И это есть. День 83 закончен. Теперь переходим на день 84. Это проект 16, часть 6. Что он здесь нам расскажет? Это был долгий проект, в котором нужно было многому научиться. Сегодня последний код. Как сказала американский профессор Анджела Дакворд, энтузиазм – обычное дело, выносливость – редкость. Энтузиазм потребовался, чтобы начать первый день этой серии. Вот вы на 84-м дне. Только что заканчиваете огромный проект, так что ясно, что вы обладаете большой выносливостью. Этот проект уже опирался на некоторые важные функции SwiftUI, такие как панели вкладок, то есть Tab-бар, Swipe Actions и Environment. Некоторые важные функции Swift, такие как импорт внешних пакетов и Result Type. И даже некоторые важные функции iOS, такие как Core Image и сканирование QR-кодов с помощью камеры. Сегодня мы добавим вишенку на торт, а именно добавление контекстного меню и отображение оповещений с использованием фреймворка User Notification. Вот как выглядит отличное приложение. Они опираются на множество языковых и системных функций, чтобы создавать великолепные пользовательские интерфейсы, которые выходят за рамки того, что может сделать SwiftUI сам по себе. Да, SwiftUI — это потрясающий способ создания приложений, но это только начало. iOS способна на гораздо больше, и как бы банально это ни звучало, единственным ограничением того, что вы можете сделать, является ваше воображение. Сегодня предстоит проработать две темы, в которых мы добавим контекстное меню для сохранения QR-кода, а также покажем локальные уведомления с помощью фреймворка User Notification. Итак, первая часть этого дня – это добавление контекстного меню к изображению.
We've already written code that dynamically makes a QR code based on the user's name and their email address. But with a little bit of extra code, we can make the user share that QR code outside the app. This is another example of where the share link view comes in handy, although this time we're going to place it inside a context menu. First, find the meview.swift file. I'm going to add a new context menu modifier to the QR code image view here, below this frame modifier right here. We're going to say we have a context menu, And inside here, we'll make our image by calling generate QR code again. Hello, dogs. Let image equals generate QR code from, and the from string has to match what we had before. That same name, line break, email address thing here. So I'm going to grab that whole string here and paste it in to this new generate QR code from call. Once we have that, we'll make our share link. And this share link will be given as an item, the image we just made, but we can't share UI images, only SwiftUI images. And so we'll make a new SwiftUI image view from this thing here, saying image with UI image of that image we just made a moment ago, like so. Now, when you share an image, it's going to want to know what kind of the preview data which you have attached to it. So I'll say we have a preview here. This will be a share preview with my QR code as a title, and the image again will be image of image, UI image, our image, like so. So again, we need to convert the UI image that comes back from this to be a SwiftUI image here, which can then be handed off to the system share sheet. Now, we could save a little bit of work by caching the generated QR code because we're calling it here and here, the same thing, the same image being made. However, a more important side effect of caching here is that we wouldn't have to pass in the exact same string, this whole name, line break, email address thing in both places, because it's here and it's here. We've duplicated the string creation exactly, which isn't very nice. And it means this duplication, if we change our mind in the future and have, say, 3 lines or flip it around so email address comes first, we're going to always change it here and here in exactly the same way every single time. Otherwise, our code will break in mysterious ways. And so we're going to do a bit of caching instead. So to do this, we're going to add a new state property to our view that will store the image that was made. So we'll say up here, at state, private var QR code is an empty UI image. And now we're going to modify our generate QR code method so it quietly stores this new code it makes inside that state property there before sending it back. So we'll say all the way down here, don't send it back directly. Instead, stash it away in the QR code property and then send that property back. So it's storing the cached version and then sending it back to be used. And now our context menu share link button can use that cached QR code. So up here in our share link, here we can ditch calling generate QR code again, removing that string duplication, like so. And then down here, the image we'll share is our QR code cached image here, and also here in the preview. Now, before you go any further, make sure you add the same project configuration option we had for our instance filter project. You've got to have a permission request in place asking, is it okay if I save this thing to your images? Otherwise, the option won't appear in iOS at all. If you've got to do that, it's okay. What you want to do is go to the Hot Prospects app up here, choose Targets, Hot Prospects right here, then go to the Info tab, and then right-click somewhere in here and choose Add Row. Now, the option we want this time is scroll way down to Privacy. Here we go. You want Photo Library Additions Usage Description. We want to add pictures to the photo library. And the string we'll show is, we want to save your QR code. And now go ahead and run the app, because you're likely to find things don't quite work the way you expected, and that's okay. That's how we learn. Let's go to the Me tab. Boom. We get a blank QR code now, and also this line appears down here saying modifying state during view update. This will cause undefined behavior. And also this little purple warning thing appeared. This is a runtime issue. Something went wrong when our code actually ran. It's telling us that line links back to our caching code. Using that cache causes the problem here. What this error means is that our current view body up here makes an image by calling generate QR code. And then that'll make our shareable image, which is great, attach it to our context view, that's our context menu, which is great as well. But then calling that method now internally modifies the QR code property. And the QR code property is marked with @state. And @state means when I change, re-invoke the body property. Keep the body and the state in steps. They always have the same data inside them. And so we've got a loop. Making the view body changes QR code, which makes the view body, which changes QR code, which makes the view body, goes round and round and round. And we've got a loop here. And SwiftUI has basically bailed out and said, I'm just going to flag a big warning here. This is clearly wrong. Don't do that. To fix this, we're going to make our image view use our cached QR code. So down here, rather than calling generate QR code here, I'm going to select that line and press Command X. Just that generate QR code call, press Command X now. It's on my clipboard. And instead say your image is going to be that QR code we generated. And the reason I use Command X is because we still need to call generate QR code somewhere. And the answer is we'll call it with onAppear and onChange to make sure the code is updated when the view is first shown, but also when name or email address is changed. This will be making a new method that will update our code, calling that line of code there, which we can then call from onAppear and onChange smoothly. So I'm going to say down here, we have a new method called update code, like so. I'm going to do QR code equals and just paste in what I had on my clipboard. So paste in that whole generate QR code line here, like so. And that can now be called when our view is shown and when name or email address changes. And so I'll say here below navigation title, onAppear, perform update code. And on change of name, update the code. And on change of email address, update code. So calling that same thing from 3 places, which is why it's a unique method. We don't have to call generate code in each of those 3 places. It'd be pretty grim. Having a method that we just say update code means we haven't got to copy this entire string everywhere we go, which is much nicer. So now we have that. Now we have update code here, directly updating the value of QR code safely. We can now go back to the earlier version of generate QR code. We can just literally send back a UI image directly without modifying the QR code state. It is now safe to call from anywhere you want to. And now this step is actually done and done properly. We can hopefully press Command R to rerun the code. Go back to our Me tab. There we go. That's our QR code thing here. I'll change this to be name of Paul. You can see it's changing it correctly. Again, for email address, paul@hackingwithswift.com. Great, all working nicely. And when I press and hold this thing, I can go to the share button, bring up our share sheet, hopefully. There we go. There aren't many, again, the simulator, but you can see the preview working nicely. Use real device, you'll see more options here. But I can go to save image, and it'll say, do you want to allow saving or not? That's our plist info warning thing there. I'll choose allow, and it saved it correctly. So now we have sharing done safely and properly.
Это было интересно повторить. В частности, о сохранении через share link, потому что до этого был реализован отдельный вообще объект image saver, и там не так все было просто. Я сейчас проверю, как у меня работает здесь share link. Так, share, save image, allow. Да, все сохранилось, но почему-то сохранилось размытое. Почему-то сохранилось размытое. Ну, так или иначе, это все есть. Следующее. Следующее видео — это уведомление на заблокированном экране.
For the final part of our app, we're going to add another button to our list swipe actions, letting users opt to be reminded to contact a particular person. This is going to use the iOS user notifications framework to make a new local notification, and will conditionally include it in the swipe actions as part of our existing if check. The button will only be shown if the user hasn't been contacted already. Now, much more interesting is how we actually schedule the local notifications. Remember, the first time we try this, we've got to call request authorization to explicitly ask for permission to show notifications on the lock screen. But we've also got to be careful. Subsequent times, because the user might have retroactively changed their mind and disabled notifications, we've got to check there too. Now, one option is to call request authorization every time we want to post a notification. And honestly, that works great. The first time it'll show an alert, and all other times it'll immediately return success or failure based on the previous response. However, in the interest of completion, I want to show you a more powerful alternative. We can request the current authorization settings and use that to determine whether to make a new notification or to request permission. The reason it's helpful to use this approach, rather than just requesting permission every single time, is that settings object handing back to us includes properties such as an alert setting to check whether we can show an alert or not. The user might have said restricted that one thing so we can display a badge on our icon but nothing else. And so we're going to call get notification settings to read whether notifications are allowed or not currently. If they are, we'll show a notification. If they aren't, we'll request permissions. And if that comes back successfully, then we'll also show a notification. Now, rather than just repeat the code to schedule notifications again and again and again, we'll put it inside a closure that can be called in either scenario. First things first. In our prospects view file here, we'll add an import for that user notifications framework. So here, we'll do import user notifications. And now we'll add a new method to our prospects view struct. We'll add a notification for a particular prospect. Down here, we're going to say func add notification for a prospect. It's a type of prospect, like so. This will go ahead and get access to the UN user notification sensor .current, and then make a closure that will basically add a request for this particular person here. So I'll say let add request be a new closure, and this will make our content to a UN mutable notification content like that. The title will be contact prospect.name. The subtitle is going to be that prospect's email address, like so.
Так, человек предлагает: привет, давай проведем совместный стрим, познакомимся, поговорим. Я занимаюсь похожей деятельностью. Это можно? Это можно. Тебе какая тема больше интересует, SwiftUI или JavaScript?
And then we'll add some sound here. We'll do the default UN notification sound, like that. Boom. And now we're going to say when to show this.
Я fullstack.net и Angular. Знаешь как, давай, я не знаю, у тебя есть где-то нам это обсудить, то есть чтобы нам обсудить какие-то моменты, о чем мы будем говорить. Недавно начал стримить, хочу попробовать кнопку совместная трансляция. Да, я только за. Обговорим какие-то моменты и полетим. Я только за то, чтобы вместе как-то развиваться, идти дальше. Можешь написать мне, где тебе удобно. У меня по ссылке, которую я скидывал в чат. Там есть много моих соцсетей. Там и Threads, и Instagram, и Telegram. Напиши мне где-нибудь, и я тебе там отвечу, поговорим.
Alert in the future. Just for now, we'll say there are some date components in place. A new date component object. And we'll say that really all we care about is the hour of this thing is equal to 9. So it'll be 9 a.m. in the morning, 0 minutes, 0 seconds, whatever, just 9 a.m. Like that. And our trigger is going to be a UN calendar notification trigger with a date matching those date components, but don't repeat. Not 9 a.m. every single day, for example. That'd be quite annoying. And that can go inside a request and be sent off. So we'll say our request is a UN notification request, identifier, new UID, UUID string. Oops, like that. So basically a random identifier. Content is our content, trigger is our trigger, and then call center.add that request, like so. And there's more code to come. So that's putting all the code to create a notification for the current prospect into this add request closure, which we can call whenever we need to in the future. Notice I have used this UN calendar notification trigger here. So we're saying explicitly here, the custom date components of 9 for the hour, 9 a.m., whenever that happens to be, wherever they are. But for testing purposes, I would recommend you comment out your trigger code here and replace it with a simple interval notification trigger. So rather than saying all this stuff here, that just commented out, that's just command / on your laptop, your keyboard, sorry. And then instead, just for testing purposes, use the interval instead. We'll say our trigger is a UN time interval notification trigger. So trigger after n seconds have elapsed. In our case, we'll do 5 seconds, repeats false, like that. So just for testing purposes, just so we can see it working correctly. And of course, in the real app.
Так, только канал вижу в телеге, как написать, не знаю. Так, твоя телега, окей. Давай заглянем, посмотрим.
Remove that, put the old one back in again. Now, that's the first part of the method. For the second part of the method here, we're going to use both get notification settings and request authorization together to make sure we only schedule notifications when we're actually allowed to. This is going to use the add request closure we just made a minute ago, because the same code can be used if we have permission already, or if we have to ask first and have then been granted permission. So replace this more code to comment with this. We'll say center.get notification settings, like that. And this will be giving us a completion handler, this thing here, what to run. Here's the current settings. And if our settings authorization status
Написал тебе в Телеграме.
is authorized, great. Call add request. Boom. Otherwise, we aren't currently authorized. We're going to say center request authorization with options and a completion handler here. Options, what do we actually want to show on the screen? For us, that's going to be alert and badge and sound. And completion handler will tell us, was it a success or not? And if it wasn't, what the error was here. And we'll say simply, if it was a success, so we've asked for authorization and we're granted it, great. We can now call add request as before. Hasn't changed. Otherwise, if we have an error to work with, we'll just print out error.localized description, like that. So you can see what went wrong. And what went wrong is going to be you were denied or whatever like that. Okay. That's all the code we just trying to schedule a notification for a particular prospect. And so now all that remains is to add an extra button to our swipe actions. So up with our actions up here somewhere. Here we go. This is them here. We already have delete, and we have this if block here. This new button should only appear if they are currently not contacted, which is this section of the if here, the else section here. That's what we're going to put the extra thing here. We're going to say there's a button with a title of remind me and system image of a bell. And when that's triggered, we'll call add notification for whatever prospect they were swiping on in the first place. My tint for this.
Я пропустил буквально последние пару строчек кода.
What the error was here. Our grant size.localized description like that. See, that's all the code we just kind of schedule a notification for a particular prospect. And so now all that remains is to add an extra button to our swipe actions. So up with our actions up here somewhere. Here we go. This is them here. We already have delete, and we have this if block here. This new button should only appear if they are currently not contacted, which is this section of the if here, the else section here. That's what we're going to put the extra thing here. We're going to say there's a button with a title of remind me and system image of a bell. And when that's triggered, we'll call add notification for whatever prospect they were swiping on in the first place. My tint for this one, I'm going to use orange, like so. And that completes the current step, and actually completes the project as well. Go ahead and press Command R, give it a quick try. Remember, we're in time interval notification trigger mode here, and so when you're in, there's no one here right now, I'll delete them, of course, a new person, here we go. They're currently uncontacted, which makes sense. Here's our new button, this alert thing here. When you press that, it will ask you, do you want to allow alerts or not? It's the first time I'm doing it. I'll press allow, but you want to get ready to press this button here, Command L, or go to the device lock option here. That locks the device. You can see the home screen and the lock screen, so you can test it working. You've got 5 seconds in our trigger, remember. So I'll press allow, then press Command L. It'll lock my device. Hopefully, after it counts down from 5, boom. Contact Paul Hudson at paul@hackingwithswift.com. Alerts work brilliantly. Good job.
Good job, good job. Это у нас уже все есть. Интересного я в этом дне ничего не отметил, поэтому просто стандартная has the been updated to the last version. Спустя год отвечу человеку. Hey. Hey. I finished the updated version, and as you already know, as you probably already know, the course is fully updated to the iOS 17. Да, не так. Just so your comment, as you probably already know, the course is was fully updated to the iOS 17. Reply, and here quote finished updated to iOS 17. Copy Post. Paste. Опубликовать. На этом день 84 закончен. Пойдем ли мы сегодня в день 85? Потому что тут по-любому есть какой-то челлендж. Давайте сначала сразу посмотрю челлендж. Есть ли мне смысл сейчас в нем сидеть? Или оно уже у меня все сделано? Так. Первый челлендж какой был? Угу. Угу. Окей. В принципе, можем этот денечек пройти и как раз закончить проект, текущий проект, и выполнить 3 дня за один день, да. Окей, тогда что делаем? Что делаем? День 85, да. День 85. Начинаем день 85. Это день итог проекта 16. День 7. Небольшой тест и также челлендж. Британский математик Исаак Ньютон однажды сказал: если я и видел дальше других то потому, что стоял на плечах гигантов. Это известная его цитата. Это довольно скромная точка зрения для человека, который является одним из самых влиятельных ученых всех времен. Я думаю, то же самое можно сказать и о работе с API Apple или Apple API. Мог ли я сам написать CreateML или UI-Kit или Map-Kit или Core Image или User Notifications? Может быть, что-то одно из них. А если бы вы мне сильно помогли, то и 2. Но это маловероятно. К счастью, мне это не нужно, и вам тоже, потому что обширная коллекция Apple API означает, что мы тоже стоим на плечах гигантов. Даже такие вещи, как правильная обработка дат, требуют огромного объема работы, но это то, о чем нам не нужно беспокоиться, потому что Apple уже решила это за нас. Так что воспользуйтесь этой потрясающей возможностью. Создайте что-то великолепное. В последнее время мне в Инстаграме постоянно попадается вот эта женщина, которая говорит, типа: Александр, не грусти. Верь в себя, Александр, у тебя все получится. Да, вот такая вот танцующая женщина. Создайте что-то великолепное, что объединяет 2, 3 или более фреймворков, а затем добавьте свои собственные настройки поверх. Именно эти последние шаги действительно выделяют ваше приложение из толпы, и именно здесь вы добавляете свою собственную ценность. Сегодня вам следует проработать, или предстоит проработать заключительную главу проекта 16, завершить его обзор, а затем выполнить все 3 его задания. Что? Я. Окей. Будем идти по порядку, да? Сначала мы пройдем вот это wrap-up, потом review и потом challenge. Итак, wrap-up. Да что такое? Я постоянно не на той клавиатуре печатаю. Так, полетели. Hot Prospects Wrap-up. Это был большой проект. Наш самый большой проект на текущий момент, но конечный результат is another really useful app that could easily form the starting point for a real conference. Along the way, we also learned about custom environment objects, tab view, result, image interpolation, context menus, local notifications, Swift package dependencies, and so much more. It's been packed. We've explored several of Apple's other frameworks now. CoreML, MapKit. Кстати, вот про CoreML мне больше всего не понравилось. Больше всего. Machine Learning, MapKit, Core Image, and now user notifications. So I hope you're getting a sense of just how much we can build just by relying on all the work Apple has already done for us. Окей. Порадовались тому, что мы сделали. И переходим к тесту. Тест состоит из 12 вопросов, построенных по принципу дано два выражения, как два утверждения. Какое из них верно? We can display local notifications without asking permission as long as they don't play sounds. Это неверно. Нам для любых уведомлений нужно запрашивать permission, разрешение. Второе. The model container modifier creates a model context for us automatically. Это, в принципе, верно. Какое верно? Второе верно. И все уведомления требуют разрешения. А второе, model context доступен для чтения из SwiftUI environment. Следующее. Local notifications can show alerts and play sounds. Ну, это верно, но они могут делать больше. Swipe action buttons must always show both text and icon. Это неверно. Они могут показывать только картинку, могут показывать только слово, так что верное утверждение 1. Try to limit how many notifications to show to avoid annoying your user. We should provide text for the buttons so VoiceOver has something to read, but when showing more than one button, you should use icons only. Следующий вопрос. Time interval triggers let us schedule notification for a particular time of day. Also, if data model classes must use the model macro. Вот второе верно. Time interval triggers fire after a certain number of seconds have elapsed. This rewrites their code to load and save their properties with Swift data. Следующий. Sets cannot contain duplicate items. Или Swift's result type is designed for use with throwing functions. Он не для этого только сделан, а вот set не может, действительно он не может содержать дублирующиеся данные. All items in sets are always unique, which is one of the reasons they are so fast. It can be used with throwing function, but it doesn't need to be. Следующий, пятый вопрос. We can attach image to context menu buttons, but they don't have any color. QR-codes are just barcodes with more colors. It's generally best to use line art such as the SF symbols icons. QR-codes are quite different, but they're also used to colors just like barcodes. It's a good idea to attach a context menu to every view. Context menus are triggered when users long press on a view. This is a very bad idea indeed. This used to be done using hard press, but long press is the standard now. Следующее. We can add multiple swipe actions to either side of a list row. Или list support selecting only a single row at a time. Мы только что говорили про selection. iOS lets us add as many as we want, although in practice any more than 3 is likely to be hard to use. Although we can make a list support only single selection, they can also support multiple selection. Следующее. Swift package dependencies let us easily import third-party code. We can queue up to 3 notifications at a time. There is thousands of packages out there to draw on. You can queue more than 3, but remember not to annoy your user. Следующее. If you want to programmatically set the active bar for tab view, we must set a tag on the views inside it. Или SwiftUI's list cannot work with computer properties. SwiftUI's list. Сложно. Потому что если мы хотим на самом деле программно задать активную штуку, ну вот первое верно. The tag can be an integer or a string. SwiftUI's list work great with computer properties. Это observable must always be with classes. Это верно звучит. To make Swift data object observable, we need to use both observable and addModule. Модул у нас автоматически observable. This is true, we can't use it with structs or enums. The addModule macro builds on top of Swift's observation system, so it does both in one go. Swift's result type can contain either success or failure, but not both. Это верно звучит. Using an edit button should always be balanced with a done button. Такой кнопки нет. This lets us reduce complexity in our code by eliminating impossible program states. Edit button shows both edit and done automatically. И последнее. SwiftUI disables image interpolation by default. Нет, она включена по умолчанию. SwiftUI smooth out the pixels in an image if we stretch it larger than its original size. SwiftUI enables high quality interpolation by default. We can control interpolation using the interpolation modifier. Окей, это пройдено. Теперь переходим к чему? Сколько? 18. Переходим к челленджу. Челлендж такой. Добавить иконку на экран все, everyone, showing whether a prospect was contacted or not. Но я, наверное, продемонстрирую все-таки эту вечеринку. Так. Не туда я нажал, да? Да, значит, что я здесь уже сделал? Давайте посмотрим. Первая задача. Добавить иконку на все, на everyone screen, которая показывает, был ли контакт с... контактировал ли я с каким-то контактом. Вот, пожалуйста, зеленая контактировал, красный не контактировал. Я могу свайпнуть, нажать не контактировал, и он станет красным. Это вроде бы понятно. И так далее. Что? Дальше. Что следующее? Добавить экран редактирования, чтобы пользователь мог подправить имя и email адрес of someone they scanned previously. Кого-то, кого они отсканировали раньше. Совет: используйте простую форму navigation link вместо navigation destination, чтобы избежать your list selection code confusing the navigation link. Это тоже уже сделано. То есть я нажимаю на список и вот могу убрать вот это, да? Например, да? Назад. Все подправилось. И последний челлендж. Allow users to customize the way Context sorted by name or by most recent. Это тоже работает. Most recent by name. Но сейчас получается так, что вот так оно, да, но я добавлю новый. Теперь оно по имени сортируется. Ну, например, давайте я напишу не Макс, а Алекс. Вот, пожалуйста, у нас есть Алекс. Сортируем по имени. Секунду. Тут у меня ошибочка есть. Сортируем по имени. Сортируем по дате добавления. Пожалуйста. Все есть. Правка. Delete selected. Все работает. Так, таким образом, челлендж-то выполненный получается, и я могу написать пост о выполнении обновленного дня 85. Ребята, осталось 15 дней. Это 84-й день. Я же написал про него, да? Написал. Теперь день 85. I had to rewatch all videos of this project because of course update. Вот. It was very useful. Это в марте 24 года было. I solved all challenges by myself. Dynamic sorting was the hardest task, but I enjoyed it. Окей. Это уже было меньше года назад. Ну, почти год назад. Quote. Dated to iOS 17. Just 15 days to go. Если 15 дней осталось изучать, а у меня осталось 1, 2, 3, 4 дня. Ну, по сути, мне по 4 дня нужно за день проходить. Поэтому как бы мне это все дело сделать. Как будто бы нужно еще один денечек сегодня пройти, да? Давай посмотрим, что у нас здесь. Быстро. 16 минут. Долго. 5 минут. Время у нас еще нет часа ночи. Поэтому давайте-ка я пройду этот денечек. Окей. Идем сюда. Есть. Мы переходим в проект 17. У нас зачесался жесть. Так, начинаем проект 17. Часть первая. Это день 86. День 86. Давайте почитаем, что он здесь нам скажет в качестве введения, да? Когда iPhone представил iPhone 10, iPhone X, они отказались от того, что присутствовало с самых первых дней существования iPhone. Это кнопка «Домой». Эта простая деталь оборудования была там с самого начала запуска, как способ помочь лучше. Так лучше. Как способ помочь пользователям вернуться на домашний экран, независимо от того, что они делали и какое приложение использовали. Это делало все устройство гораздо менее пугающим. По мере того, как мы привыкали работать со все более крупными стеклянными панелями, типа экранами, Apple начала все больше полагаться на жесты. Мы получили распознаватели жестов, возможность проводить пальцем для завершения работы приложений, раскрывать и вытягивать меню для системных функций и многое другое. Но с iPhone 10 Apple действительно вывела все на новый уровень, потому что без кнопки «Домой» почти все стало жестом. Apple даже выступила с докладом на WWDC 18, чтобы побудить разработчиков больше думать о жестах. И там Чан Карунамуни из команды разработчиков пользовательского интерфейса Apple сказал кое-что действительно важное о жестах. Когда это действительно хорошо, иногда люди даже говорят, что это кажется естественным или волшебным. Хотите ли вы создавать приложения, которые кажутся естественными? Конечно, хотите. Это новое приложение, которое мы создаем, будет в значительной степени полагаться на жесты. И уже через несколько секунд использования вы будете использовать жесты со скоростью света. Это именно то, к чему мы стремимся. Жесты, которые кажутся настолько естественными, что вам трудно представить, что они работают как-то иначе. Сегодня предстоит проработать 3 темы, в которых мы узнаем о жестах, тестировании нажатия и многом другом. Давайте-ка посмотрим, что он в оригинале говорит. Hit testing and more. Okay, let's get it started. Flashzilla introduction начинается. Сейчас. Flashzilla introduction. В этом проекте мы собираемся создать приложение, которое поможет пользователям изучать информацию с помощью карточек. Карточек, на которых написано одно, например, «купить», и другое, например, «купить». Не понял сейчас. Ага. To buy, а на другом comprar. Все comprar, colchones. Есть такая реклама в Мексико-Сити. Или Мехико-Сити, как мы говорим. Конечно, это цифровое приложение, поэтому нам не нужно беспокоиться о другой стороне. Вместо этого мы можем просто сделать так, чтобы детали карточки появлялись при нажатии на нее. Название этого проекта на самом деле является названием моего самого первого приложения для iOS. Приложение, которое я отправил так давно, что оно было написано для iPhone OS, потому что iPad еще не был анонсирован. Фактически Apple отклонила приложение во время обзора, во время ревью, потому что в его названии продукта было Flash, а в то время Apple очень хотела, чтобы Flash не было рядом с их App Store. Как изменились времена. В любом случае, в этом проекте нам предстоит узнать много интересного, включая жесты, таймеры и многое другое. Поэтому, пожалуйста, создайте новый проект iOS, используя шаблон, назвав его Flashzilla. Как всегда, сначала рассмотрим несколько методов, а потом приступим к созданию чего-то настоящего. Так что давайте начнем. Да, давайте. Как использовать жесты в SwiftUI, да? Так, как использовать жесты в SwiftUI?
SwiftUI gives us lots of gestures for working with views and does a great job of taking away most of the hard work so we can focus on the parts that actually matter. Now, we already used on-tap gesture in an earlier project, but there are several others to work with, and there are also interesting ways of combining gestures together.
Одну секунду. Мне нужно закоммитить, что я закончил. Что я закончил те проекты. Save users location. Это было в чем? Это было в том. И теперь можем опять все сделать. Day. Какие дни у нас были для проекта номер предыдущего? 79. Правильно? Да, 79-85. Hot Prospects. Проверяю перед коммитом. Коротко, что тут у меня, какие изменения. Мгм. Да, все. Можно коммитить. Commit to main, push to origin. Все, сори за небольшое отвлечение, полетели дальше.
Together that are worth trying out. Now I'm going to skip past that simple on-tap gesture here. We covered that previously. But before we try bigger things, I do want to add you can pass in a count parameter to make these things handle double taps, triple taps, and more. So here we have text hello world. I could say this thing has attached to it an on-tap gesture with count of 2. And when that's triggered, I'll just print out double tapped, like so. Run the code back. I can press once, nothing at all. Press twice quickly. Boom. Double tap appears down here. Okay. Let's look at something more interesting than just simple taps, okay? For handling long presses, you can use a modifier called onLongPressGesture. So here, I would say we have an onLongPressGesture, and the code to run will simply print out long pressed, like so. Let's try that out. If I tap quickly, nothing happens. Press and hold, we get long pressed printed out. And like tap gestures, these long press gestures have customization options as well. For example, we could specify a minimum duration for this press so that the action closure only triggers after a specific number of seconds have passed. For example, we could say this one here should trigger after only 2 seconds have elapsed. We'll say this has a minimum duration of 0, like that. So you can press and hold for 0 seconds, or 1, or 2, or, well, maybe not 10 perhaps, but 2 is a good example here. Let's give it a quick try. So I'll press for straight away and release, nothing at all. Press and hold 2 seconds. Boom, long pressed is triggered. You can even add a second closure that triggers when a state of the gesture is changed. This is given a single boolean as input, and it tracks whether the gesture is currently in flight or not. What this means is, as soon as you press down, the change closure will be called with parameter set to true. The gesture is currently in the progress of being tracked. If you release before the gesture has been recognized, so in our case here, it's a 2-second gesture recognizer. If released after 1 second, for example, then the change closure is called again with parameter set to false. It's no longer in flight. However, if you hold down for the full length of the recognizer, then the change closure is called with parameter set to false because it has finished, it's no longer in flight. But then the completion closure is called as well. We can try out here. We can say we have this current onLongPressGesture here with a new onPressing changed second trailing closure. It'll tell us if it's currently in flight or not. We'll do print in progress is that in progress boolean, like so. Let's press Command R and give it a quick try. So I'll press and release quickly first, and you'll see true, then false appear back to back. It's being scanned, and they're not being scanned straight away. So a quick click, boom, true and false. Try again, you'll see true printed out, then false and completed. Now for more advanced gestures, you want to use the gesture modifier with one of the built-in gesture structs. We have drag gesture, we have long press gesture, magnify gesture, rotate gesture, and tap gesture. And they all have special modifiers, usually called onEnded, and often onChanged too. And you can use them to take action when the gestures are in flight for onChanged or completed for onEnded. As an example, we could attach a magnify gesture to a view so that pinching in and out scales the view up and down. This can be done by adding 2 new state properties to store the scale amount, then using that inside a scale modifier and setting the values inside a gesture. So we'll say in our view here, at state, private var, current amount is 0.0. That's going to store how much we're going to scale up and down in the current gesture. Then we'll have at state private var final amount of 1.0. That's the current finished scaling value for this particular view. Then let's delete this onLongPressGesture and replace it with a gesture modifier, like so. Inside there, I'll make a magnify gesture like this. So we want to scale this thing up and down with a pinch on an iPhone screen. Like I said, this thing has an on-changed closure that we called with the current magnification value being passed in. And what we're going to say is, I want to read into our current mount property the magnification value we're being passed in. So it'll be 1 by default because it hasn't zoomed up at all. So if it's lower than 1, it means it's shrinking. Higher than 1, it means it's being stretched bigger. In our case, we're going to subtract 1 from it. So we'll get a value of 0 when it hasn't moved. And negative to make it smaller, and positive to make it bigger. We'll then add an on-ended modifier to this, again giving the magnification value coming in. This means the gesture is released their fingers from the screen. We're now going to add to our final amount, whatever is in current amount, hello dog, like this. Add it in, store it permanently for next time, and then set current amount back to 0. So you can go ahead and drag further and further and further and get bigger and bigger and bigger like this. Let's give it a quick try. Now press Command R. So on a simulator here, you can get 2 fingers by holding down the Option key and seeing this. So I'm going to go over Hello World and just drag upwards, I'll do the simulator perhaps, like this, and hopefully, oh, I'm being a chump. I'm being an absolute chump. I'm sorry. Missing one key part of this, which you're probably screaming at your screen right now. They're missing this out, Hudson. Yeah, sorry. Our gesture works great. These properties work great. Got to add that scale effect modifier too. Here, scale effect is going to be the final amount, whatever's stored in there permanently, plus whatever's happening in the live gesture being tracking right now. That's much better. Go ahead and press Command R. Give that another try, the correct code this time. Again, Option key, get 2 fingers up, and just click and drag. Boom, there we go. When I release, it'll stay that big, because final amount's been changed. I can do it again, and get bigger, and get bigger, and get bigger, or scale downwards and get smaller and smaller and smaller like this. Obviously, with a real device, it's much easier to use your fingers, but on a simulator, hold the Option key down, kind of drag around like this. Okay, so that fixed the scaling very nicely. The similar kind of approach here we're taking for rotating views using a rotate gesture, except now we want to have the missing modifier is a rotation effect modifier. So we're going to say that our properties here aren't just doubles of 0, they're instead angle.0 here and here. Now its final amount starts as being 0, meaning it starts not rotated. We're going to replace the scale effect with a rotation effect that simply adds the current amount to the final amount, like so. And now this bit in the middle, this is where I'm going to change here. This whole magnify gesture is going to go. We want a rotate gesture instead. When this thing is changed, again, give me the value coming in, and our current amount is value.rotation. So how much we're currently live rotating by in the current gesture. And again, when onEnded is called, give me the value coming in, and I'll add to final amount, whatever's in current amount, and set current amount to .0, so the 0 angle like that. Let's press Command R, give it a quick try. You like this, don't you? Yes, you do. So again, you want to hold down the Option key, like so. This time, pull it around like a twist motion with your finger on your trackpad or mouse if you're using, and you get sort of spinning thing like that. As you can see, it works very, very nicely. Again, you can let go and spin some more again and again, because we're storing that final amount separately from the current amount. Now, where things start to get more interesting is when gestures clash, when you have 2 or more gestures that might be recognized at the same time. Like if you have one gesture attached to a view and some other gesture attached to its parent. For example, we can have an on-tap gesture attached to a text view and a VStack that contains a text. Let's give that a try now. Let's get rid of some code. Here. So I have sort of simple hello world. I'm going to wrap that in a VStack like so. And for the inner view, this text hello world, I'm going to say we have an on-tap gesture inside here. It will print out the text has been tapped. And the VStack is going to have an on-tap gesture saying the VStack has been tapped. Like that. So they're both trying to read a tap gesture attached to them. Let's press Command R. And what we find is, in the situation, SwiftUI will always give the child gesture priority. And if I tap on Hello World, we're going to get text tapped every time. However, if you want to change that, you can use the highPriorityGesture modifier to force the parent's gesture to be triggered instead. So we say, for example, I want the VStack here. Not a simple tap gesture anymore. This is a high priority gesture here. And this is going to be a tap gesture, like so, with an onEnded being called in here, like this. And when this thing ends, I'm going to go ahead and print out the VStack, like so. Tell me when it's been tapped. So let's press Command R. And this time, press Hello World, we're going to get VStack. So it knows we want the VStack to receive that tap gesture, even though normally it'd be grabbed by the text view inside it. Alternatively, you can use the simultaneousGesture modifier to tell SwiftUI you want both the parent and child gestures to trigger at the same time. So rather than saying high priority gesture here, I'm going to say this is a simultaneous.
Сразу пишу.
simultaneous gesture like that. Boom. Again, tap gesture on ended, print, VStack tapped. Press Command R. I'll tap here, and now both fire. VStack tapped and text. Finally, SwiftUI lets us make gesture sequences, where one gesture will only become active if another gesture has first succeeded. This takes a little more thinking, because gestures need to be able to reference each other, so you can't attach them directly to a view. Here's an example. I'll show you one now that shows gesture sequencing, where you can drag a circle around, but only if you first long press on it. So I'll say first we have a new property up here that will track how far our circle's been dragged. So at state, private var offset is CG size.0. I'll also have a property here that tracks whether currently dragging the circle or not. We'll say at state, private var is dragging is false. Now inside our view body, we're going to start out making a drag gesture that updates offset and is dragging as it moves around. So I'll say here, let drag gesture be a new drag gesture. When this thing is changed, give me the value coming in. And I'll simply say our offset that we're storing right now is the value.translation, how far it's moved in its drag. I'll also say on ended, when we release the thing coming through, now I want to know, underscore here, so underscore in. Now I want to say, okay, this back to being 0 again, so it resets the whole gesture. So I'll say with animation, offset is .0 and is dragging is false. That's our first gesture. After that, I'm going to make a long press gesture that enables is dragging. So we'll say here, our press gesture is a long press gesture on ended here. With the value coming in, we'll basically ignore it and do with animation is dragging is true. So you long press first, the trigger is dragging being true. And now we have those two, we're going to make a combined gesture that forces the user to long press and then drag it around. So I'll say here, we have let combined is our press gesture dot sequenced before the drag gesture. So it must be long press, then drag. Now with that all done, I'm going to make a fixed size circle that will scale up a little bit when it's dragged. We'll make its offset be whatever we had from our drag gesture and make it use our combined gesture. So I'll say here, we have a circle filled with the color red, scroll down a little bit, with a fixed frame width of, let's do 64, height 64, with a very gentle scale effect. If we are currently dragging, we'll say 1.5, otherwise 1. So it's slightly bigger. We'll offset this thing based on the offset property we have and attach as a gesture our combined gesture. Let's press Command R and give it a try now. There's a circle. I can drag around. Nothing happens. If I press and hold, it grows upwards, and now I can drag around. When I release it, it'll snap back and shrink to the middle again. Again, I can't pull it normally. Clicking and dragging does nothing at all. I have to press and hold. It triggers long press, and now in drag gesture mode. These gestures are a really great way to make fluid, interesting user interfaces. But please make sure you show users how they work. Otherwise, it can just be confusing.
И из нового, конечно, принципиально ничего, но повторение это прям много. Переходим к включению интерактивности. Полетели. Disabling user interactivity with allowsHitTesting.
SwiftUI has an advanced hit testing algorithm that uses both the frame of a view and often also its contents. For example, if you add a tap gesture to a text view, then all parts of the text view are tappable. You can't somehow tap through the text, you have to press exactly where a space is. On the other hand, if you attach the same gesture to a circle, then SwiftUI will ignore the transparent parts outside the circle. To demonstrate this, we'll make a circle overlapping a rectangle using a Z stack, both with an on-tap gesture modifier. So I'll say here, in my view, we have a Z stack with a rectangle filled in the color blue. With a fixed frame, I'll do width 300, height 300. Then an on-tap gesture. So we'll say print rectangle tapped. Then over that, I'll place a circle, like this, filled in red, with the same frame, width 300, height 300, like that. And this time, the on-tap gesture will simply say circle tapped, like that. Now, press Command R, give this thing a quick try. You'll see, pressing the circle in the middle, of course, print circle tapped. But I press in this blue area, still in the circle's frame, but it's transparent there, we're going to get rectangle tapped, like so. So, as you can see, SwiftUI does a really good job of realizing this circle's transparent, even though it has the same frame. But it lets us control user interactivity in two useful ways. The first of which is a modifier called allowsHitTesting. This is attached to a view, and when you do so, with its parameter set to false, the view isn't even considered tappable. That doesn't mean it's inert though. Just so it doesn't catch any tap on the screen, things behind the view will get tapped instead. So here, we could try adding it to our circle. We could say, fill red frame today on that gesture, but allows hit testing is false. And now, wherever you tap on that circle, it'll print out rectangle tapped. It ignores the circle. The circle simply refuses to respond to any taps that are happening. The other useful way of controlling user interactivity is with a contentShape modifier, which lets us specify the tappable shape for a view. Now, by default, the tappable shape for a circle is a circle of the same size. We can specify a different shape instead. We could say, for example, I want to have a, let's remove this HitTesting thing, and say before tap gesture, we have a content shape of a rectangle. And where this thing comes in really, really useful is when you actually have tap actions attached to stacks of spaces. This effectively changes where it can be tapped. For a circle here, now the whole thing's tappable because it has a rectangular shape for it. So here's a circle, and here in the blue is also a circle. But when you have stacks of spaces, it really matters because SwiftUI won't by default trigger actions when stack spacer is tapped. We could try it out. We could say, let's get rid of all this code. We have a V stack here with a text hello, then a spacer. I'll give this thing a frame with a height of 100. And then let's say after the spacer is the text world. I attach a whole VStack tap gesture that simply prints out VStack tapped. So wherever we tap inside there, we want to print out VStack tapped. And what you'll find is it isn't quite how it works. If I tap in this white area at the top, nothing happens. Tap on hello, we get VStack tapped. Tap on world, VStack tapped. Tap on the space in the middle, nothing at all. So only these exact areas where the text happens to be around here and around here triggers the area. However, if we use contentShape rectangle on our VStack, then the whole area for the stack becomes tappable, including its spacer. So we can say here, before on tap gesture, we have a contentShape of .rect. Make the whole area rectangularly tappable, and now we'll get taps here, and world, and in between as well.
Ясно, вот этого я вообще не помнил. Этого я вообще не помнил. contentShape имеется в виду. И здесь есть много чего сказать интересного на самом деле. Столько много, что даже все сюда не поместится. Это было сделано 1 марта, то есть мне нужно finished, updated to iOS 17. И дальше у меня есть много всего, что сказать. Ух ты, все хватило. То есть мне по-любому до 1 марта желательно это все закончить. Так, день 86 закончился, я поздравляю. Что у нас день 87 нам несет? 6 минут, 3 минуты, 10 минут. Окей, это уже долго получается, поэтому на сегодня все. Что хочу сказать, что я сегодня сделал. День 83, 84, 85 и 86. 4 дня за сегодня. Неплохо. Осталось 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. 14 дней. И 4 дня. Давайте поделим. 14 делим на 4. Получаем 3,5 в день. Грубо говоря, все равно 4 урока за день надо проходить. А если как сегодня, то будет легко. Я думаю, что вот до сюда я дойду вообще легко. А вот эту часть будет, конечно, делаться подольше, потому что она для меня новая. Тем более тут какая-то оптимизация для iPad. Интересно, конечно, но вот это последний проект будет. И потом финальный экзамен. Ну, посмотрим, как оно пройдет. Вот сейчас у меня как раз час ночи. Я удивлен, что, в принципе, еще относительно рано. Вот, я уже и JavaScript позанимался, и Swift. Я вообще доволен тем, как сегодня мои эфиры сложились. Вот, конечно, после окончания этого дня мне нужно будет вернуться в некоторые моментики, там кое-где кое-чего подправить. Но в целом неплохо. То есть вот в следующий раз я начну, продолжу, точнее, день 80. День 87. Вот, а на сегодня это все. На сегодня это все. Я благодарен всем, кто подключался, кто комментировал, кто писал. Если вы смотрите это видео в записи на YouTube, и вы еще не подписаны на мой канал, я вас попрошу сделать это. Подпишитесь на мой канал в YouTube. Можете также подписаться на Twitch. И там мне это очень сильно поможет в развитии канала, в его продвижении. Вот. Также какие-то другие ресурсы, какие вы можете найти по ссылке в описании. Также заходите туда, смотрите, подписывайтесь. Сейчас я скину еще раз эту ссылку в чат. По этой ссылке можно множество, вот здесь она появилась над моей головой. Можно много моих ресурсов найти, мои проекты даже какие-то, мой LinkedIn и много чего еще интересного. Threads, Twitter, Telegram, Twitch, YouTube, Mastodon, BlueSpace, ссылка на проекты, ссылка на донаты, GitHub мой. Ну и в принципе все. Так что заходите, подписывайтесь, ставьте лайки, пишите комментарии. Я благодарен за любую такую поддержку. Так что так. А на сегодня все. Я уложился в 2 часа в этом эфире, поэтому буду заканчивать. Спасибо за просмотр и увидимся с вами очень скоро в следующий раз. Пока.